Hey guys, it's Downtown Josh Brown. I am here with my friend and now co-author, Brian Portnoy. Brian Portnoy is the founder of Shaping Wealth. He is one of the most well-known experts on behavioral finance. Is that the right? Good enough?
That's the right way to put it.
Okay, investor psychology, behavioral finance. One of the most highly regarded experts on the topic in America and possibly the world. Who knows? But Brian is my co-author on the new book, How I Invest My Money. We are incredibly excited about the fact that it's coming out in mid-November. But this is Brian's third book, and it's my third book. So I thought what we would do today is talk a little bit about what it takes to do a book, because probably every one of you thinks that you have a book inside of you, and you might. So how does that work? We're going to get into it in a second. Stick around. We'll do the music. We'll come back right back with Brian Portnoy. Okay, we're back. So this is your third book. When did you do your first book? I forgot.
The Investor's Paradox came out in 2014, The Geometry of Wealth in 2018.
Okay, so I did Backstage Wall Street. I almost said Backstreet Boys. It came out in 2012. I wrote it in 2011. Basically, you write a book and then a year later it comes out. Pretty much,
it takes
right?
A while. It takes a while.
And then I collaborated with Jeff Mackey, and we did something fun about like Wall Street pundits, of which I guess I am one, and Jeff is one. But we interviewed Kramer and all these famous like people that go on TV and stuff and talk about the markets and what it's like behind the scenes. So this is a little bit of a behind the scenes. I guess that's like a recurring theme with me. Yeah. Backstage Wall Street was like, this is what really goes on in a brokerage firm. Clash of the Financial Pundits was like, this is what goes on in the financial media. This is the real people's lives. And now what are we doing with this one?
Yeah, behind the scenes.
Right.
Behind the scenes. Well, it's funny because, the financial services, the whole money business, it just seems so opaque and maybe even a little bit dangerous. And like the books and the movies and, the larger than life characters in the real world that get splashed across the headlines. And so, I'm sure you have the same experience in New York that I have in Chicago where, people know you're in the money business and they're kind of like, oh, I'm not an expert in that. So, I can't even talk about it. It's like this other world. And if they only knew, and maybe because of your books and mine, maybe they know a little bit more about what really takes place. And it's actually filled with like normal, flawed people trying to make sense of things.
That's a really good point. I think people are like, oh, you work on Wall Street, you must be doing some crazy shit. Not really.
No.
Not actually. But that's a good point that you made, like, because all right, so is there even a financial celebrity? Like, I think it's Jim Cramer, basically. Like if you went to a mall in the Midwest or in the South, like away from New York, Boston, LA, right? You just like went to like a suburban shopping center, and you ask people who's somebody famous that is involved with money, or who's like I think like they could pick.
Maybe
if you show them a picture of Cramer, they would say that's Jim Cramer. That's it though. We don't have like celebrities that have crossed over. Oh, maybe like the Shark Tank people, right?
Yeah.
Like Damon John and them, but I think that's pretty much it, right?
I mean, Tony Robbins has made his way into this space.
But that's not what he's known for, right?
Yeah. I mean, probably your world of Manhattan, Long Island's a little different than where I am in the, city of Chicago. Wrigley Field is a mile straight behind me.
Right.
My street is, all single family homes with, families. I think I'm the only person on the block out of 30 families that's involved with finance. I mean, people are just doing something else. They don't, not only do they not know, they kind of don't care.
Oh, I don't have any.
Good.
I don't live around any Wall Street people.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Well, that's
no. Good. Like on Long Island, if I lived in the North Shore, I wouldn't be able to breathe because everybody is CNBC. They watch financial television and they read the Wall Street Journal, And honestly, like it would not be pleasant, but they have all the good restaurants because that's where all the money is. I live on the South Shore, and my friends are like, they own pharmacies, they own insurance companies, very successful, but they're not like stock market people. And I thank God for that every day.
Yeah. Actually puts us probably both in the position to step outside a little bit and look back in.
Yeah. I think that's good. I think that's a good point. What if we said, like, so you do a book like this, and basically let's back up a little bit. The book is basically going to people that work in finance, and they're financial advisors, they're traders, they run hedge funds, whatever it is. They're professional people in our industry. What if we said, like, you go to all these people that work in finance and they're financial professionals, and you just say, like, tell me about don't tell me what other people should do. Don't tell me how other people should invest. How do you invest? You earn money, you have to save, you have things that you're investing for. What are you doing with your money? And nobody's really done, I don't think anyone's really done that before, do you?
No. I mean, if I go back 20 years to when I was working at Morningstar, and, part of the interview process as a fund analyst was, hey, how much money do you have invested in your own fund? 0 to 5%, 5 to 10%. I mean, that's as much as it got. So in terms of my experience, people don't really want to say, which is why, when did your blog come out? Like a year and a half ago? Has it already been 2 years? I don't remember, but I read it and I was like, this is just really helpful. Like, it's really insightful. You got a wife, you got a couple kids, you got things you want to accomplish. And you kind of revealed how you've arranged your assets to accomplish those goals. And there's something so straightforward about it. It's almost revolutionary. And so, that's when I think I just texted you. I was like, dude, this is great.
I spoke to Jeff Benjamin this week. He got an early copy of the book from you.
Yep.
So Jeff Benjamin is like one of the most tenured storied reporters at Investment News, which covers our industry. And he's like, I actually tried to do an article about this years ago where I asked all these financial advisors, like, give me data or give me spreadsheets on your own personal investments, and it didn't really go anywhere.
No.
So when he got this book, he's like, yeah, this is what I've always wondered. He was blown away by Christine's chapter. So Christine Benz from Morningstar, who's a fund analyst extraordinaire, and she writes and she speaks, and she's just an all-around amazing commentator.
Head of personal finance for the firm, I mean, globally.
Yeah.
So she's writing about everything that's important to regular people.
So Jeff's like, oh my God, Christine is putting ticker symbols in her chapter. Like, she's saying these are the funds that I own, and this is the share class. He's like, I've never seen anything like this before. So I thought that was really cool to get that reaction from him.
Yeah.
So the illustrations, I think, really, really make the book. Not that the chapters themselves don't stand up on their own, but I like the fact that there's like a visual representation of each person's, I guess we could call it a way of life, right? Like each person's philosophy on what they're doing with their own money.
Well, so it's fun. Carl's participation in the project went through a few different iterations, because once you and I decided that this could make a cool book project, and Harriman House said, yeah, we'd love to publish it. We began to reach out to some initial people like Christine and Morgan, and Carl was one of those first calls. I mean, he's just profoundly insightful, and the fact that he comes at it from almost a design or an imagery point of view, like, it's just kind of legendary. And so I called him up and I said, we'd love you to participate. And he said, that's great. And I was pretty excited about that. And like 2 weeks later, he calls back. He's like, I don't want to do it. I'm like, right. Oh, okay. I mean,
too late. Too late. We put your name on the cover already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're on the Amazon page already.
Right.
No, so, but he said, instead, maybe I'll just do like one of my sketches. Like, that will be my chapter. I'm like, oh, that's great. Good. 2 weeks later, he calls me back. I don't want to do the sketch. I'm like, huh. All right. I mean, again, do what you want. He's like, but how about I read everybody else's chapter and interpret them from my point of view and draw a custom sketch for them.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you friggin' kidding me? Like, I'm like,
amazing.
number one, I'm like, that's 25 times more work, which didn't seem to faze him. It would faze me.
Right.
And, he was off to the races. So, when we collected all these chapters from these amazing contributors, he went ahead and drew a one-of-one sketch that captured the spirit of what people were writing about. And, I just can't wait for people to see them. They're, number one, they're beautiful, but number two, like, they're so spot on in terms of how they do capture, sort of what someone's focus is in their money life.
You know how good they are? I don't tweet anymore, but I think I'm going to start putting one of these out a day on Twitter because they're so good. And just like here's Carl's drawing for blank's chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I was thinking is when we sell the rights to the book to Netflix, like each one of these chapters, and hopefully everybody's in, but they do 12 episode seasons, so maybe they'll pick 12 chapters.
Yeah.
And some of these poor advisors that we have who've contributed to the book are now going to have a camera crew in their house for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Documenting them and interviewing them for each episode.
Yeah. Vignettes. Maybe we can get a bidding war and get Netflix, Hulu.
Yeah, Disney Plus, but we'll all have to be in stormtrooper costumes.
Yeah.
But it's, you know what? Somebody else said that the way my father-in-law, I think it was my father-in-law. He said he read the book, but he didn't read it in order. Well, no, it wasn't. I forget who it was, but I think a lot of people, and I mentioned this in the intro, like if people read this a la carte, it's fine. Like if you say, I'm just going to grab a chapter here and there, I'm not going to sit down and read the whole book all the way through. What's the difference? We want you to like be inspired individually by each person's story, because we have the whole gamut. We have people in here that own no bonds, Howard Linson, and he explains why. And then Carolyn McClanahan, I think she said she's half fixed income.
Yeah.
And then everything in between. So why? And each person's story and explanation for why they're allocated the way they are, that doesn't have to be read in any particular order. But you did structure the book in a certain order. And I don't even think we talked about it. Like what's the rhyme and reason of the order of chapters?
Other than the order in which they came in?
Yeah. Besides that. No, you didn't do that.
No, we didn't. There's another level to it, which is that the financial services industry needs to be much more diverse, but the trend is positive. And so we reached out to friends, from our Twitter world, from our day-to-day working lives. And so, the idea was to just create sort of just a collage of different perspectives. So, instead of going, it starts off with Morgan because, he's fabulous.
Morgan Housel.
Morgan Housel.
Who I think is like the best writer in finance today.
Yeah, Michael Jordan of financial writing.
So that's your leadoff hitter. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we got leadoff hitter, and then Christine is number 2 because she's awesome. And at that point, I'd have to look in the book to see what the order was. But it's really just sort of a mix of people very early in their career, later in their career.
Yeah.
We've got men, women, portfolio managers, financial advisors, people whose families have been, in America for, 12 generations. And, our friend Desarte, his parents moved here not that long ago.
Yeah, he's a first generation American and killing it by all accounts. Killing it.
Yeah. One thing I'm really proud of what we put together is the chance for anybody who picks up the book is going to be able to find somebody that they're really comfortable and attracted to their story.
They can relate to. Yeah.
Who they can, that's a better way of putting it. Like we've got just a pretty wide array of contributors. And not like with predictable contributions. You mentioned the word stories earlier, and I point this out, I think in my concluding chapter where I try to summarize everything, like we didn't give anybody any instruction.
No.
We said read Josh's blog, and get a feel for what he did. You have free license, not just to talk about your portfolio, but your values, your saving, your spending, your borrowing, your charity work, and so forth, and have at it. And so
Yeah, like tell it like you live it. There's no like fill in the blank. Like it's a blank slate. You say what you want to say.
Yeah. And so like take, for example, someone who I have a lot of respect for, but she's just up and coming in the industry, Leanne Miko, a young advisor in California.
Yeah.
She's killing it. She's building something special with her financial planning practice. And she told, I don't think she even referred to her portfolio or how she technically invests in the market. She told a story of growing up in financial distress and the mark that made on her, and how now she's giving back through her planning practice. I mean, it's like goosebumps. It's like, wow, this is like a super personal story. And
there were there were a lot of those stories about like people in their youth being uncertain about where money was coming from. And I think in a lot of cases it galvanized them to become so passionate about helping others, about like Tyrone's story, okay? Obviously Desarte's story, Nina O'Neill's story, Cheryl Penny, who was an orphan basically.
Yeah.
Like Cheryl Penny, when you ask him who raised you, it's like his grandfather and the town he grew up in basically raised him, up in Maine, and he had nothing. And look at him now. He's the founder of Dynasty. What are they, $50 billion on their platform? He's might be the most successful person I'm friends with that I know well. That's a very common theme. And then another common theme that I saw was the passion about like people arranging their portfolio and their practice, their profession around something that they really care about. And Perth Toll is a great example of that. And Tyrone's a great example of that. And I think we did a good job at finding people that really had that passion. And I think it came through. And those will definitely be the Netflix episodes. All right. A lot of people ask about what it takes to do a book. And I'm sure they ask you too. I think there's a lot of fascination with like, oh, you're a published author. Meanwhile, I've written, I don't know, 15,000 blog posts.
No one cares.
But I do a book, and it's like, you did a book? Yes, I took the same words I would have thrown up on WordPress and I put them on paper. But whatever, people are like, that's a thing. Okay, and I get it, because you know why? I told this to Morgan the other day. In the digital world, everything's free, so who cares? It's unlimited. You could you could write a book and put it online, and so what? But when you do something like this, there are other people in the chain who have to agree that this is something of value that you're working on. And they have to want to actually invest in the art and in the paper and in the shipping and in the promoting. So that's why it's a little bit more momentous. But we worked with Harriman House, which you brought to the table. I had done my other two books with McGraw-Hill. Why do you like working with Harriman House? And shout to Craig and Lucy and the whole team. They've been great. But why were they a good partner for this project?
Well, first of all, Craig Pierce, who some people know, but he'll become more prominent over time. He's he's fabulous on multiple levels. He's just a great editor, and I think the editing process or the art of editing is one of the most underrated yet super important elements to the kind of the creative, to being creative. And I've found in my experience as a writer over the last 10 years, there's a big difference between reading and editing. Lots of people can read. Very few people can edit, because it means putting yourself in the author's shoes and really helping them express themselves the best. Craig is, I think, exceptionally good at that. He was introduced to me by our mutual friend, Daniel Crosby, who's written a couple books with them with a great deal of success.
Yeah.
And then I published The Geometry of Wealth with Harriman House, and they were just wonderful partners. my first book was with one of these mega, super mega presses. And, I was just a face in the crowd. Harriman House, they shepherded the project along, and, the editing, the artwork, the marketing, like they do a nice job. And I think what we found is that for the financial Twitter community, they've become just a very comfortable place to publish our work. I mean, if you recall, so you published your blog. I texted you that day or the next day, and I said, basically, this is awesome. And we began to chat and say, hey, it'd be kind of cool if we got a group of people together to make a book of these. And I said, hold on, let me call Craig. And I called him, and he's like, are you kidding me? This is a great idea.
Yeah, he was in.
I think literally from you publishing your blog to me texting you to us having like a physical book contract was 4 days.
We didn't pitch him. He was like, this is a great idea. Let's do it. I love people like that. That's the way I am.
No bureaucracy, no BS.
And then as the project got underway, I started to panic on you because the pandemic was like starting to happen. And I was like running a firm with 30 something employees. And we're like, we have deadlines. Like we have to get contributors to say yes. Then we have to follow up and get them to actually, all right, you said yes. Where's your shit? Send us the chapter. I lost my mind, and I was just like, dude, you got to take this project away from me because I feel like I'm not helping, and I can't take phone calls during the week about it. And I was just very, very overwhelmed. And I think I'll never forget, like in that moment, you weren't a co-author, you were like a friend. You were like, calm down, stop ranting and raving, just take a breath. We're gonna get this done, and I will take the driver's seat. And you just, when you're ready to come back to the project, you'll come back. And I really I haven't gotten a chance to tell you how much I appreciated you doing that, but I definitely did, and I'm really glad you did that because somebody else, myself for example, I would have been like, all right, f*** you, get out of here. I'll do this myself. But you don't have that personality, and thank God you don't. So I wanted to awkwardly on a podcast tell you, thank you.
Well, I remember that call vividly, and it was a stressful time. And despite the nice thing that you just said about me, the fact that I can be the source of calm in a project should let you know how messed up this whole enterprise was, because I'm not always this way. But honestly, like, I think we had a vision for something that could make a difference. We each have families, jobs, priorities. So there was a bit of a kind of a back and forth a little bit, but we got into a rhythm, and once we began to invite contributors, and mostly everybody said yes, and some people just because of timing, a couple people for compliance reasons couldn't, but for the most part, everyone we asked said yes. And over the course of a couple months, the essays came in, and what was nice for them, nice for us as editors, and nice for the readers is that every chapter is like 4 pages.
Yeah.
So like it's not heavy lifting. Like it's a relatively short book, and you can pick and choose whatever chapters.
That's what books should be. I mean, not every book, but like for the most part, it shouldn't take you 50 pages to tell somebody how you invest your money. If it does, your portfolio is probably bananas, right? Like, So I think a book of this nature, the chapters should be short. You should be able to breeze through them, because we're not talking about how do you build a rocket ship to get to Mars. Mm-hmm. That's not what the book is.
No, you think about like the endless amount of ink that's spent on like the future of value investing, or those big topics. And look, the good thing here is no one's telling you how to invest. They're telling you how they allocate their capital. Yeah. Not only their money, but their time and their network. And I mean, you said something earlier that reminded me, like, I've given the book to 2 or 3 friends who have begun to flip through it. And they're all doing the same thing, which is that they're picking the chapters that's like at first blush seem most interesting to them. I don't even know if they're reading your introduction, but they might just like say, "Oh, I've heard of that."
I'll call them and read it to them over the phone. Tell me who's not
Yeah,
reading the
exactly. Well,
introduction.
that's the audiobook part. You could just sort of like
Oh yeah,
just
and
start.
we're on we're gonna be on Audible, right? Or how do people get the
Yeah.
audio version?
Amazon. There, there's one bookstore left. I'm sure you've heard of it.
All right, we're gonna link to all that stuff, by the way, in the
Yeah.
notes, so you'll know how to get it. All right, we're gonna wrap with that. Brian, I wanted to ask you, where can people find out more about what you're doing with Shaping Wealth and your latest endeavors? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah. So website shapingwealth.com.
Okay.
Also, Twitter at
Okay.
Brian Portnoy. Unlike you, I'm still active and
Active in the community.
yeah, we miss you. We miss you.
I know.
But
So,
understood.
all right, so go to Brian Portnoy to follow Brian. Go to shapingwealth.com to learn more about his new business. And you founded this business during the pandemic, right?
I did right in the middle of it.
Good for you. All right, we're gonna have you back to talk about that in a little while. We definitely want to hear the whole Shaping Wealth story. And in the meantime, if you haven't pre-ordered the book, I don't really know what your story is. Let's go. Get the book. Get it delivered the day it comes out, and give some as gifts to friends. We timed this. I don't know if you noticed. Mid-November, right? So we think it's a good gift too. All right. Thanks so much, Brian. Thanks. I'll talk to you soon.